Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having me here. Let me start by, first of all, congratulating Duapa for organizing this important event and also inviting me to interact with you on this very important topic of the African Continental Free Trade Area. In my presentation, I will try to answer to some of the questions that have been asked. What is the African Continental Free Trade Area? How can African citizens benefit from the AfCFTA, and what can they contribute to the success of the AfCFTA? I will try to focus on those three questions, and eventually I will share with you some of the slides that can make you understand better the technicalities of the AfCFTA. Let me first of all start by trying to understand the AfCFTA in simple terms. When we talk of the AfCFTA, African Continental Free Trade Area, we are talking of a market. And it's a market, it's a geographical market for Africans that combines 55 African countries in one market that tries to remove borders, artificial borders that we all know are separating our countries, and allow free movement or freer movement of goods and services across the continent. The AfCFTA, of course, is established by a legal framework. It is established by the law, and that legal framework is trying to remove all restrictions that have been put in place to allow freer movement of goods and services across the continent. Let me start by, first of all, emphasizing that the AfCFTA is not a process in isolation. AfCFTA is a process within the entire African Union Continental Framework to achieve the African integration process. And here I'm trying to explain the roadmap for that continental process so that you understand where the AfCFTA is in this roadmap. First of all, we are aware of regional economic communities. The regional economic communities have been formed or created by Abuja Treaty, the treaty establishing the African Economic Community, to try to integrate Africans at regional level. And currently, the African Union recognizes 8 regional economic communities. Those are East African Community, COMESA, the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa. You have the South African Development Community, the SADC. You have Economic Community for West African State, which is ECOWAS. We have Economic Community for Central African States, which is ECAS. You have UMA in the Maghreb, which is the African Maghreb Union in the north. We have IGAD in the east, which is Intergovernmental Development Authority. And then we also have CENSAD, which is for the Sahel State Community. So those 8 regional economic communities are considered as the building blocks of the AfCFTA, but also of the African Economic Community. And now, as we move gradually towards the African Economic Community, we know that regional economic communities were supposed to strengthen their economic integration at regional level, by eliminating non-tariff barriers and tariff barriers across the region, and then eventually establish their free trade area and customs unions. And then afterwards, those customs unions of the region will be consolidated in one continental customs union for Africa. And this will eventually lead us to a common market, hopefully maybe in the next 5 years. And then the ultimate goal will be to establish the African Economic Community that is supposed to be achieved in 2028. And this roadmap is in line with Agenda 2063, which is Africa we want. We want to achieve a better Africa by the year 2063. So this integration roadmap fits into the Agenda 2063, and African Continental Free Trade Area is one of the flagship projects of the Agenda 2063. Now the AfCFTA market has been established. It has been established by the agreement, of course, the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area. And this agreement has got a number of protocols which are part and parcel of it. They're integral part of this legal framework for the AfCFTA. We have a protocol on trade in goods that will govern movement of goods across the continent. We have a protocol on trade in services governing movement of services across the continent. We also have a protocol on rules and procedures for the settlement of disputes, which of course we regulate the disputes that may arise among countries when trade within the AfCFTA starts. And there are other protocols that will be negotiated and be part of the AfCFTA legal framework. And hopefully next year, some of these protocols will be concluded. There is a protocol on competition, a protocol on intellectual property rights, a protocol on investment, and a protocol on e-commerce. And now in my presentation, I'm focusing more on the protocol on trade in goods and the protocol on trade in services, because these are the protocols that will give life to the start of trading on the 1st of January 2021. The protocol on trade in goods has got 9 annexes, and those annexes are governing the details of trade in goods across the continent. Annex 1 shows the schedules of tariff concessions. This is the list of tariff, let's say, the tariff structure of all products that will be traded across the continent based on what countries have agreed to liberalize. And that schedule of tariff concession will show how tariff will be reduced gradually right from the beginning of the start of trading. Then we have Annex number 2, which is Annex on rules of origin. And the rules of origin are very important component for trade in goods, because the rules of origin will determine whether a product will enjoy preferential treatment within the AfCFTA market. And the rules of origin, which provide for a certificate of origin for every product, it means that that certificate will be considered as a passport of a product when it is being traded across the continent. We have Annex 3, which deals with customs procedures. It's about customs cooperation and mutual administrative assistance. It also looks at how customs authorities will cooperate across the continent from one country to the other to facilitate the movement of goods, but also upgrade the systems that will allow freer movement of products across the continent. Annex 4 deals with trade facilitation. You all know that for goods to move freely, there are a number of trade facilitation measures that have to be put in place, right from easing the procedures, improving the infrastructure, fast-tracking the process itself in terms of saving time. So the trade facilitation agreement or annex will also govern that aspect. We have annex on non-tariff barriers. It's also a very important annex for the AfCFTA, because this one, we've got an online mechanism which can be found at tradebarriers.africa, where the business people will be able to interact on a daily basis with government officials dealing with non-tariff barriers. Business people will report in real time the non-tariff barriers that they meet in their process, in their trade activities of every day. And once the non-tariff barrier is reported, then experts in charge will deal with it and will ensure that the non-tariff barrier is resolved as quickly as possible. There is an annex on sanitary and phytosanitary measures, SPS. This is very important to standards of products that will be consumed on the continent. There is an annex on transit, which will govern products that will be in transit. And finally, we have an annex on trade remedies. So you can see that the protocol on trade in goods is very rich in terms of allowing all the steps of imports and exports of products across the continent within the AfCFTA market. The key milestones which have been achieved so far, which are very important to share with you. The AfCFTA is a process. A decision was made in 2012 to establish the AfCFTA. And within only 6 years of negotiations and preparatory activities, the agreement was ready for signature on the 21st of March 2018. And after 1 year of signature, the agreement entered into force on the 30th of May 2019. As you know, the launch of operational phase of the AfCFTA took place in Niger, in Niamey, on the 7th of July 2019. And now we are ready for start of trading within the AfCFTA, which is marking the implementation phase come 1st January 2021. And it's been already decided that outstanding negotiations, both in phase 1 issues and phase 2, will have to be concluded next year. And the latest will be 31st of December 2021. So this is, in a nutshell, what the AfCFTA is about. Let me now talk about the opportunities, which I think everyone should understand, that by opening up African market, by widening African market, we're giving more opportunities to the private sector. This is a market for private sector. So we're giving them more opportunities to trade their products in a wider market, and then they will get better access to the other African countries where they have not been trading before. I have to emphasize the point that today, the level of intra-Africa is only 18%. It means that there is now opportunity of 82% of Africa's trade, which is not being exploited by Africans. This means trade that is happening between Africa and the rest of the world. So now, by having AfCFTA in place, African products will be better and more sold on African market in better terms than how they are being traded with outside markets. So there have been studies to show the macroeconomic impact of the AfCFTA, which are important to note, but there have also been studies that show the contribution of the AfCFTA to the welfare of the people. And all those studies have shown positive impact of the AfCFTA. First of all, in terms of economic growth, the AfCFTA is going to boost our economies, African countries' economies in general, but also AfCFTA will contribute to the betterment of African people. So now here is a paradox which AfCFTA should deal with. Africa as a continent is rich in terms of natural resources. We have the biggest reserves of natural resources in the world. We have land, we have minerals, and we have all sorts of natural resources that are exported to the rest of the world. So the only missing gap is that Africans are not exploiting their resources to produce what they need to consume. Because if we are now trading only at 18%, it means that we are importing almost everything from outside Africa. And yet we are selling our resources to the outside world. So the AfCFTA is going to ensure that we make use of our resources, we produce for the market, we add value to the resources that we have, and then in so doing, we are improving our economies, and we're also contributing to the welfare of the people by creating jobs and many other activities that will be associated with the whole value chain. I would like to mention some important steps that AfCFTA is going to go through in terms of tariff liberalization. People have to understand that come 1st January 2021, we are not going to have full liberalization of the market. It's going to be a process. The modalities for tariff liberalization determine that non-least developed countries will have 5 years to liberalize their market, and least developed countries will have 10 years to liberalize the market. And when you look at it, it's like we start in 2021, it will take 5 years up to 2025 for non-least developed countries to have their market fully liberalized, 90% of their tariff lines put to zero. It will take 10 years up to 2030 for LDCs to have their market liberalized at 90%, meaning that 90% of their tariff lines will be put to zero. If you are talking about 90% of the market, today we are only exploiting 18% of the market. So if the 90% of the market is liberalized, it means that we can almost trade everything within Africa, produce everything on the continent, buy everything from the continent. And everyone can understand how this will contribute to the welfare of everyone. Again, the remaining percentage has been split into two. 7%, which will be designated as sensitive products, will also have to be liberalized afterwards. For least developed countries, they will have up to 13 years. It's only 3 years later that 7% will be completely liberalized, and non-least developed countries will use 10 years, which will mean by 2030 they will have 97% liberalized. So this is something very good for the continent, and only 3% will be excluded from liberalization. So if we are able to achieve 97% tariff liberalization on the continent, this will be probably the best free trade area that we can have in the world. And this is going to be achieved. We just need the cooperation of each and everyone. Let me quickly update you on where we are. When we say that trading starts on the 1st of January 2021, those countries that are ready to start trading are countries that have done, let's say, three things. One, those countries that have signed the agreement. We already have 54 countries that have signed. Then the second step is to ratify the agreement. Today we have 34 state parties that have ratified the agreement, covering about 62% of the African Union membership. And then the third step is to, you have to submit your tariff offers. Today we have 41 countries that have already submitted their tariff offers, making about 75% of the AU membership. And those countries that have submitted their tariff offers are the East African Community countries, which are 6 countries. ECOWAS countries, we have 15 countries of ECOWAS. We have CEMAC countries, 5 of them. And we have SACU countries again, and we have additional countries that have submitted their tariffs individually, including Egypt, Madagascar, Malawi, Mauritius, Seychelles, Sao Tome, Zambia. And I have to mention that ECOWAS has submitted their tariff offer together with Mauritania. So it means it makes a total of 16 countries within ECOWAS tariff offer. So what do we now do next? How can we make this market work? Because the good legal framework is there, the benefits are there, but we still have to do something to make the market work. First of all, we have to put in place customs and trade documents. And this is the homework for countries. To facilitate movement of goods, you need to train your customs authorities, put in place customs procedures, and also have trade documents ready. And these documents are already known. They include the certificate of origin and other customs documents that are used to facilitate movement of goods. We also have to ensure harmonization of standards and quality infrastructure, as we have the annex that govern the standards within the Africa. For a product to enjoy the AfCFTA market, it has to meet the standards of the AfCFTA. So there will be a process of ensuring at national level that our standards comply with the AfCFTA standards. There will be standards that have to be established, which are not there, but there will also be standards that have to be aligned with internationally recognized standards to make sure that all products produced from your country can enjoy the continental market. There will be additional work to be done between January and June. We'll have to ensure that all outstanding tariff concessions are concluded. I've shown you that 41 countries have so far submitted their tariff offers, and the remaining countries are supposed to also submit their tariff offers by June 2021. And those who have submitted their tariff offers have to ensure that they have comprehensively covered the 90% plus 7% of sensitive products and 3% of exclusion. So we need to have the full package from all member states by end of June 2021. There is also more work to be done on trade and services. Countries have been given up to June 2021 to finalize their schedules of specific commitments on trade and services and regulatory frameworks in 5 priority service sectors. And the 5 priority service sectors, which include financial services, business services, communication services, and tourism and transport services, have been identified as priority service sectors. So they have to be concluded by June 2021, at least to start trading in services. Additional service sectors, normally in trade and services, we have 12 sectors. Additional service sectors will have to be concluded by December 2021. Now, we also know that there will be additional protocols, as I said, the protocol on investment, intellectual property rights, competition policy, and e-commerce. Those protocols also have been given up to December 2021 to be concluded. So there's a lot of work to be done during the course of next year. And finally, we also have to ensure that logistics across the board, the logistics infrastructure are very well addressed. We have to make sure that there are no roadblocks. Actually, let me call it roadblocks. But when you talk about logistics, you ensure that the technology being used to fast track the clearance of products, you ensure that roads you ensure that procedures, all those processes and infrastructure that might become a challenge to the movement of goods have to be addressed at national level and across the borders. And then finally, we need to produce. We enhance our productive capacities across the continent. If we don't produce for the market, then we do not take advantage of the market. So we have to produce. We have to produce for the market. Before I conclude, let me again come back to some of the expected benefits. Recently, we've undertaken a study with the World Bank, and it's been estimated that the AfCFTA, if it is fully implemented and well implemented, of course, it will be able to lift Africans out of poverty, and 30 million of Africans will be lifted out of extreme poverty. And it will also boost additional income for 68 million of Africans who live on less than $5 a day. So this makes it almost in total 100 million Africans who will be lifted out of poverty by implementing AfCFTA. So it's something that everyone has to put all the efforts to ensure that we succeed in the implementation of the AfCFTA. The other aspect which I also have to mention is that the AfCFTA will provide opportunities for investors, not only local investors, not only African investors, but also foreign investors. Some countries have been attracting FDI. The AfCFTA, by harmonizing the regulatory framework, by creating a conducive environment for the continent, by expanding the market, will attract investors to come and establish in Africa, produce from the continent, and sell on the continent. And by attracting investors, you are also creating jobs. Those products that we've been consuming from outside will now be produced from within Africa and then sold to us after having contributed to job creation in the continent. I would also say that the rules of origin, are a very important aspect to assist Africa to move from a dependence on imports and now move to structural transformation. We have to start producing. We produce for our own market, which is there, but we can also produce for the rest of the world when we become competitive. So the rules of origin will allow industries to develop, industries to source raw materials from all African countries, produce for the continent, and eventually sell to outside markets as well. So I think with this, I've been able to address the three questions which were asked to me. What is the AfCFTA? How can African citizens contribute to it? And what do we stand to benefit from the AfCFTA? In my concluding remarks, I would like to emphasize that Africa, especially the private sector, take this market as yours. Start producing for the market. Ensure that you produce everything that Africans are consuming. This is your market. To the consumers, we have to change our mindset. Let's start giving value to African products. We change our mindset. Where you have a product made in Africa, buy the product. Let's not be attracted by products from outside Africa as if our African products are not good enough. So we also have to change the mindset of consumers. And by doing so, all of us stand to benefit from the AfCFTA market. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I hope I've not taken much of your time, but I had to emphasize all this. Thank you. Have a good day.